National Fire Incident Reporting System, NFIRS, coding update. This training session is an overview of the NFIRS coding system. It is designed to support your previous training. We encourage each of you to review the station copy of the NFIRS reference guide, or go to the L drive for the complete NFIRS guidelines. It is important that you carefully make your code selection to accurately reflect the type of incident that you responded to, not necessarily what you saw when you arrived. NFIRS was developed at the recommendation of the National Commission on Fire Prevention and Control. It allows communities to gather and use information about their local fire issue and to provide a way to gather data on a national level. The information enables fire departments to strengthen their programs and supports the goals of the U.S. Fire Administration. The U.S. Fire Administration goals for the NFIRS program are to reduce fire and life safety risk through preparedness, prevention, mitigation, promote response, local planning, preparedness for all hazards. By recording and using accurate incident information in NFIRS, fire departments can describe their community hazards and fire problems, support budget requests for programs to address hazards in the community, support changes to fire and building codes, evaluate code enforcement activities and effectiveness, evaluate public education programs, develop plans based on the chance of occurrence and the impact on the community, improve allocation of fire department resources within the community, schedule non-emergency activities, identify product safety issues, and finally support fire engineering analysis and modeling to make firefighting effective and safer. We as a fire department have done a great job of improving our record keeping. However, we continue to have issues with coding and the completeness of narratives. The coding issues appear to be both educational and behavioral. It is my hope that this training will assist you to better select the best code describing the situation that you arrive at. Your attitude is key to a successful program. You see, we can't just select the first code on the report that might describe the situation. It must be the most accurate code for what occurred. While there are general categories, they should only be used in special situations that are not addressed in any specific code. How an incident occurred and at our level of service are important statistical points for the department's strategical and financial planning. The first in-company officer is responsible for completing the fire incident report. The officer in charge is responsible for determining the cause of the incident and/or follow up with SOP 260.02 if a fire investigator is needed. If a fire investigator responds, coordinate with them as to what should be entered in the basic incident report before you return to quarters. Fire investigators may update the incident report days or weeks later as information is developed. This does not relieve the company officer from completing the basic report and a casualty report if that is needed. All incident reports shall be completed and locked prior to the officer leaving his or her shift. So let's spend a few minutes looking at areas where fire prevention sees the most errors. Building fires occur anytime there is an incident where there is flame production in or on a building, even if the structure does not burn. Contents burning with flame production in or on a structure is coded as a 111, a structure fire. An exception is a structure other than a building. These are coded as 112, and examples are listed here and in your coding manual. A 113 cooking fire contained to the container is easy to determine. If fire develops in a pan, but is contained to that pan, it is coded as a 113. Even if you don't see the fire, but the occupant said there was fire in the pan, it should be listed as a 113. For every structure fire, an owner-occupant data must be entered in the report. If the investigator says they will enter that information, document that in your narrative when you return to the station. Also, for every structure fire, the property value and loss, as well as content value and loss fields, need to be populated. While this will be covered later, contents are typically rated at 25% or 50% of the value of the structure, and it should be adjusted based on what you see in the structure. Primary action taken on a fire incident should be listed as extinguishment by fire service personnel. Do not use incident command. If the fire was out when you got there, then it should be listed as investigate fire out on arrival. It is a judgment call on some incidents as to whether there was flame production. But if the contents of a cooking pan did not have flame production, it would be listed as an excessive heat situation, and you would use code 251. Non-hostile sources most often come from normal cooking, use of a fireplace, or wood stove. NFIRS supplies codes for just those types of events. Again, it is an effort to not only capture the event, but later be able to compare apples to apples. The slide illustrates some of the diversity in the way NFIRS captures your data. It is also a good example of why you should look through the entire list of codes to ensure you have chosen the most accurate code for the incident. Your accuracy lends credibility to our fire report information and better assures accurate comparisons at the local, state, and national level. Building values are automatically populated from the real estate assessor's files. However, they could be old figures. Make adjustments as needed to reflect a reasonable value for the structure and contents as you see it. It is important, if it is a non-structure fire incident, to remove the value figures that are pre-populated. These two categories are fairly self-explanatory. And again, accuracy and specific coding is vital to data integrity. Once again, read the type of incident under each code before you select the most appropriate one. Do not just pick the first one that you come to. We don't necessarily have to agree with the NFIRS coding system. It is, however, a structured program, that all fire departments in the state of Virginia use. Consistency in our reporting is important to be able to compare apples to apples here in Richmond, regionally, or statewide. To help, it's a good idea to have someone proofread your report before submitting it. You should not use code 711 as we do not have fire alarm boxes. There are very few direct links to the fire department, so code 712 would be used very little as well. Remember, this does not include calls by telephone. These codes would be used most often, but by their nature show the need to read all of the codes before making the most accurate selection for your report. The key here is no fire and a sprinkler system failure on its own. Again, read the code very closely. As you read down through the codes to determine which one best describes your incident, there are times when judgment must be used by the officer in charge. Gather the facts, make a reasonable selection. Use the remarks section to explain your reason for choosing that code. Code 741 is important since it covers fire protection crew or maintenance workers conducting maintenance, yet fails to notify the fire department. An important point if you select this code is to note which fire protection company and the worker's name and place them in the narrative. This effort enables the fire prevention staff to look at patterns with a particular company or individual for which we can take action. Code 743 is quite often a judgment call. A good example for this selection is a smoke detector is not designed to know the difference between steam and smoke. Code 745 should be used, for example, if the fire alarm system activates, possibly caused by a lightning strike. The lightning may have hit the panel, a device, or caused a power surge, for which the system can handle or overcome. Code 746, once again, is another judgment call. Talking with the occupant, checking the detector may help you in your selection. A malfunction would be a failure or breakdown of the detector itself. Code 321 should be used when fire arrives first and initiates care. The three notes are self-explanatory, but are often misunderstood in reporting. So please take time to read through them carefully. Once again, reading the code explanations closely helps you select the most appropriate code in your reporting. Here, NFIRS has added comments which should make an accurate selection much easier. Code 323 involves a pedestrian, and Code 324 has explicit guidelines for your consideration. Fire reports are a matter of public record, so they can be obtained by anyone. It is a legal document for which your completeness, accuracy, and spelling are a direct reflection on the department and each one of us. Please remember, you could be called into court to testify in a criminal or civil case. An accurate and complete fire incident report will not only assist you, but increases your credibility with the court. Regardless of how good you are, have another department member proofread the report before locking it to see that it makes sense and depicts the true nature of the incident you just responded to. Now let's take a look at some incident examples and how they should be coded. This fire did not involve a structure. The comments easily explain what was done when the fire crew arrived on scene. Code 113, cooking fire contained to the container. Dispatch, the report says, dispatch to address for report of an alarm going off in the hallway filling with smoke. We arrived on scene with nothing visible and residents evacuated. Some of the residents told us the fire was in apartment 211, so we went to investigate. When we got to the apartment, the sprinkler system was going off, so we tried to find the shutoff to the sprinkler system. We asked 2 fire companies to come in to assist us in getting the sprinklers and fire alarm shut down. I was able to get the keys out of the Knox box that let me into the office where the keys to the alarm system were located. I was able to silence the fire alarm, and personnel from engine 32 were able to shut off the sprinkler. Before the sprinkler was shut off, Firefighter Jones put a sprinkler stop in the sprinkler head to slow the water flow. The system was finally shut down. The apartment manager arrived, and she said building maintenance and a contractor were called to remove water out of the apartment. Fire investigator arrived on scene, and he stated he would wait for building maintenance and the contractor once the units cleared the scene. As we look back at this report, it's very long and very detailed narrative, which is not a problem. However, there are some questions that remain unanswered. Where was the fire? What was on fire? How much damage was done by the fire and or water? These things should be included in your narrative. It is important to mention, yes, there was a fire, and where. Explain briefly what was on fire. As for how much damage, the right thing for the narrative is to state what was involved in the fire, and possibly how far the water damage extended into the apartment or the building itself. Heat from a fire resulting in the melting of vinyl siding on an adjacent home. The adjacent home sustained major dollar loss due to this. Is this an exposure? Keep in mind, an exposure fire is limited to situations where there is actual flame production on the exposure itself. In this particular case, note the melting in remarks on the main fire report. Multiple persons and entities involved can be documented in this report. So where and how do I record dollar loss of a non-fire exposure incident? Only fire exposures are reported to NFIRS. Non-fire damage to adjacent property is only recorded in the narrative of the incident report. And you can include dollar amounts in that narrative report. Code 86, investigate. Responded to a report of a vehicle fire. Upon our arrival, we noted no vehicle fire. After further investigation, we found a waste truck with what appeared to have dry chemical agent on the outside engine compartment. The driver of the waste management truck stated that trash must have fell onto the engine area between the cab and the back trash area and caught fire. The driver also stated that he was able to put the fire out himself upon our arrival. No other hazards were noted. This should be coded as a vehicle fire. Once again, the fire department may not have seen the fire. There is probably evidence of the fire, and the driver's telling you there was fire. So again, it would be coded as a vehicle fire. Code 87, investigate fire out on arrival. The comments stated was the units were dispatched to this location, non-emergency response. Upon arrival, police were on scene. Began to investigate to find a person living at this location has mental issues. The person attempted to set the mattress on fire. However, he only caught part of the bed sheets and pillow on fire. The fire was out on arrival. Made the tenant take the sheets off and dispose to prevent any rekindling. Obtained all this information, returned back to service. This should have been coded as a structure fire and the on-call fire investigator notified. However, that was not done. Code 131, passenger vehicle fire. The comments state, engine compartment burning on arrival, forced the hood of the vehicle open and extinguished the fire. The owner of the vehicle thought that her car might have been tampered with by an ex-boyfriend. The information was given to RPD and the units returned to service. In fact, the officer in charge here should have notified the on-call fire investigator, given them the facts, and they will decide if they will come out or have the vehicle towed to a secure lot. Code 531, smoke or odor removal. Comments here stated, arrived on scene to find the residents had left a pot on the stove that had overheated. No fire damage, but a fire extinguisher had been discharged onto the stove. We helped remove a small amount of smoke with a smoke ejector. The residents didn't speak English, so it was hard to understand her, but we had her son interpret the conversation. The officer here really needs to find out if there was an actual fire or just an overheated pan. This will determine the code that should have been selected. In summary, accuracy in reporting is very important to strategic planning in the Richmond Fire Department. Keep the many benefits of the NFIRS system reporting in mind. Utilize NFIRS 5.0 guidelines and the Department Support Manual as a reference. Lieutenant Greg Mundy reviews all incident reports with technical assistance from Fire Marshal David Creasy. Clarification and educational support are supplied by these two individuals. Above all, thank you for your efforts and support of this very important program.